Om Vishwandarpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyan Nijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bahirivod Bhutan Yatha Nidraya Yasakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Nama Idam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Om Narayanam Padmabhuvam Vasishtham Shaktin cha Tatputra Parasharam cha Vyasam Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindra Mathasya Shishyam Shri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padma Padam cha Hastamalakam cha Shishyam Tantotakam Vatikakaramanyaan Asmatgurun Santatamānatosmi Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Parabrahmanishtham Swato Dharmanishtham Ahimsaikaniष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे नमः श्री परमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रिय ब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् Om. I welcome you all to the 9th class of the Fundamentals of Vedanta series. We started with the question of what is it that we seek in life. And we said it is unconditional fulfillment, Purnatvam. And as we studied, the prayojanam, the benefit of Vedanta study is this Purnatvam. But to get to this Purnatvam, through the study of Vedanta, one needs to be an adhikari. And an adhikari, we said, has to meet 3 criteria. The first is that the adhikari must be a mumukshuhu, a direct seeker of this Purnatvam, not through things of the world. The second is that the adhikari must be a jignasuhu, somebody who sees the indispensable connection between the study of Vedanta and the end, which is this Purnatvam. And the third criteria is that the adhikari must have a certain preparedness of the mind, known as chitta shuddhi. So we are looking into the question of how an adhikari becomes an adhikari. And in this context, we have to answer 3 questions. How does the adhikari become a mumukshuhu? How does the adhikari become a jignasuhu? And how does the adhikari gain this chitta shuddhi? So in this regard, we are answering the first question, how does the adhikari become a mumukshuhu? And here we said that the adhikari started off like anybody else, pursuing the various goals in life, pursuing various experiences in life. But one thing that the adhikari does is that the adhikari learns from those experiences and sees what the various things in life are capable of giving me and what they are not capable of giving me. So in this regard, we got into a study of the Purusharthas, the various human goals. And we saw there are 4 Purusharthas: Arthaha, Kamaha, Dharmaha, and Moksha. The first 2, Arthaha and Kamaha, are common to all materialists. In fact, we see them being pursued by animals also. Pursuit of security and pursuit of pleasure, artha and kama. But we said this cannot lead one to purnatvam. We will see that today, why that is the case. And then we embarked on a study of the dharma purushartha, and we saw the three meanings of dharma. Chodana, lakshana, artha, dharma. Dharma is that which is a way of life prescribed by the Vedic do's and don'ts, vidhi and nishedha, in the form of duties, values, attitudes. The second meaning of dharma that we saw is dharana dharma, that which leads to harmony. We said the implementation of these duties, values, and attitudes properly, that leads to harmony. Harmony at the individual level, at the family level, at the societal level, at the environmental level, etc. And then we saw examples of how a violation of this principle leads to disharmony. And we took the example of lying, and we saw how it leads to disharmony within the individual. Lack of well-being, lack of harmony. We saw how the act of lying creates conflict, guilt, worry, fear, a split within the personality, and all of those consequences. Subsequently, we looked at the question of why a person does something wrong. And we answered that using the Bhagavad Gītā shlokas, saying that it is kamaha and krodhaha, desire and anger. Now, how does this desire arise? We trace the roots of these desires to thoughts. So not all desires are harmful, but certain harmful desires which are against dharma, that is what we are talking about here. And we saw how it starts with thought, and thought develops into fondness, and fondness develops into desire. So we traced this entire sequence. And we said that thought hygiene is very important. It's an important sadhana. And then we subsequently got into this discussion of samanya versus vishesha dharma. Samanya dharma are all the common sense values that we expect everybody to follow when they interact with me. And similarly, something that I need to follow when I interact with anybody else. That comes under samanya dharma. It applies to every person across all spheres of life. But then there's also this vishesha dharma, which varies from individual to individual. Like we saw that ahimsa is samanya dharma, not hurting anybody. But then a soldier or a doctor has to do some himsa in the form of hurting somebody else, or in the form of cutting a person. And that becomes vishesha dharma for that person. And this samanya and vishesha dharma, one has to evaluate and then determine the right course of action, because a human being has a free will, and the free will has to be channelized in the proper direction for it to be dharma, for the action to result in harmony. Subsequently, we looked at the third meaning of dharma also, which is this adrishtam, the unseen factor that is created when right action is done, and the unseen factor is called punyam. Similarly, there's an unseen factor that is created when a wrong action is done, called papam. And we saw how this punya and papa influence the future in terms of bringing conducive circumstances in one's life or unconducive circumstances. So we saw that it is the dharma that gets carried forward once one dies. Artha and kamaha are all left behind. It's only the dharma that is carried forward, and this dharma, this punya papa, is what determines what kind of birth this person gets in future. Now, we said that this protected dharma, when dharma is protected, that protects. And in this context, we saw the consolidation of all that we discussed in terms of dharma how does dharma protect? It protects by creating harmony, by maintaining well-being of the individual, family, society, environment. And it protects by this accruing of punya, which helps bring conducive circumstances in future. And those conducive circumstances can help accomplish both material goals as well as spiritual goals. So the conducive circumstances help accomplishing not only artha and kamaha in future, but the conducive circumstances, if one so desires, those will also help accomplish spiritual growth. Therefore, we said that even for this adhikari, to gain this adhikaritvam, a certain amount of accumulation of punyam is required. For that, to bring about the conducive circumstances like the qualifications and the availability of a guru and conducive circumstances for the study of the shastram, etc. And finally, we said that all of these artha and kamaha pursuits should subserve dharma. Basically, all of our artha and kama pursuits need to be channelized in accordance with dharma, and that is why when enumerating the Purushartha, we say dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma comes first. In the vision of the Veda, there can be no compromise with regards to dharma. So with this, we concluded a study of the first three Purusharthas, and now we are about to enter a very important topic, which is the study of the Moksha Purushartha. And this is where we see that all this discussion that we have been doing, how that all kind of ties together, how that comes together. So before we enter the study of the fourth Purushartha, which is Moksha, we need to understand why Moksha becomes relevant for somebody. And just like a person who is seeking food, a person seeks food only when one is hungry. If one's stomach is full, then one will not be attracted towards food. So similarly, we say there has to be a certain hunger in order for moksha to become relevant. There has to be a certain spiritual hunger. And we say that this spiritual hunger arises from this discovery of this problem of samsara. Samsara. This is a new term we are introducing today. One has to see that one is caught up in this problem of samsara. So what is this problem of samsara? What is samsara? Because only when one understands that one is caught up, one is trapped, one is imprisoned in this problem of samsara, will one begin to seek freedom from it. And that seeking is moksha. So what is this samsara? What is this problem that is imprisoning me? The problem of samsara is the problem of trying to seek fulfillment through the first three Purusharthas. It is an endless seeking. One has to see that for me to get to this Purnatvam from this first three Purusharthas is a never-ending, endless pursuit. Is this discovery. And when one discovers that I am caught up in samsara, that is when one will want to be free of it. So let us trace what the roots of this samsara are. It starts with this conclusion behind all my seeking. And we discussed this in the very first class. That I am apurnaha. I am incomplete. And as we discussed, there are various reasons why I feel so, that I am incomplete. My experience is this. there are three dimensions of my personality that we talked about. As a karta, as a bhokta, as a pramata, as a doer, I seem to have this endless list of things that keep coming up that I have to accomplish, that I have to accomplish. So the karta, I am never in a position where I can say I've done whatever whatever I have to do. I've finished all that. As a karta, I feel apurna. As a bhokta, there are always things I have to experience, places that I have to visit, and all these ideas get planted in my head. So as a bhokta, I am apurna. As a pramata, there are always newer and newer things that apparently I feel I should know. Therefore, as a pramata, I feel apurna. And as we discussed, at the level of the body, one may have issues with how one looks or with one's physique, etc. At the level of the family, at the level of the mind, there are issues like kamaha, krodha, etc. At the level of the family, there may be somebody who's not behaving well in the family with whom I have some relationship issues, or there may be somebody else who's sick. So all of these things cause me to feel incomplete, helpless, apurna. And then at the level of the profession, I seem to have all these deadlines, and I am constantly saying that until I finish this, I cannot rest. Apurna. And at the level of possessions, I may feel I don't have enough possessions and I need to get more. Or somebody else has more possessions than me, and there is all this comparison and complexes that come about. There is peer pressure. So there are all of these things which reinforce my apurnatvam. And I am this tiny speck in this wide world, this huge world. I'm at the mercy of so many forces. There are forces that come up within me that I have no control over. There are forces from beings around me. There are mosquitoes that bite me, or there may be a neighbor that's making a lot of noise. And there are forces that are these natural forces that are way beyond my control, like earthquakes or floods or whatever. So there are all these reasons that come about and say that you are apurnaha, that make me feel apurnaha, that reinforce my apurnatvam. So the corollary of this conclusion is I'm not comfortable being apurnaha. I cannot be comfortable with this. Like we said, do you want to be happy on weekdays or weekends? My natural answer is I want to be happy unconditionally. Do you want to be happy at home or outside home? What kind of a question is this? That's what we ask. So if I don't have a work environment where I'm happy, I try to change it. I try to adjust the things around me so that I can feel comfortable. And whenever I am apurnaha, whenever something makes me feel apurnaha, I don't feel comfortable. I feel I should change. So I don't feel comfortable with my apurnatvam. And therefore, I feel that I have to change this situation around me so that I can feel purnaha. So how do I try to solve this problem? I try to solve this problem by pursuing artha and kama. I feel that I am not happy, I am not secure with myself. I am apurnaha, I am incomplete in terms of my security, I am incomplete in terms of my happiness. So I try to pursue this externally, saying that if I accomplish this thing in the domain of artha, if I accomplish this in the domain of kamaha, that will make me feel happy, that will make me feel secure. So I get into this business of becoming happy, becoming secure. And in addition, like we said, if I have Shraddha in the Vedaha, then for the purpose of my future Artha and future Kamaha, I may also pursue Dharma. Because it helps accomplish Artha and Kamaha. Then how does this start? We need to revisit our discussion about kamaha. How does this desire enter my mind? Through thought. So I come across something in the world, and that makes an entry into my mind, and then I start dwelling on it. A certain fondness develops, and then I start visualizing that if I possess this, then I will become more happy. If I possess this, I will become more secure. I'll become complete. I will become purnaha if this thing I possess, if this becomes mine. And actually, this is what the marketing people are taught in business school. How do you create this desire in people? And that is why all these advertisements, they always have these smiling people, happy people who are shown along with the products and services that they are selling. And when people see this thing repeatedly, they are influenced into thinking that perhaps this thing is what I'm looking for to get some completeness, to get this, to get rid of a certain apurnatvam or to get purnatvam. And what this thing is may vary from person to person. There may be somebody who says, I want to pursue X in order to feel more happy, in order to feel more complete. And somebody else may say, I have to pursue Y. So for somebody, this may be buying a car. And on the other hand, for somebody else, it may be selling a car. Because the person may say, here, I just spent some 20,000 rupees on this car last month, and now suddenly it started to develop this problem. So this car has become a burden, and therefore he wants to get rid of that burden because it's causing a purnatva. It's reinforcing a purnatva in his vision. And then similarly, there may be somebody who says, I want to buy a house. And somebody else may say, I want to sell a house. And somebody may say, I want to get a spouse. And somebody else may say, I want to get rid of my spouse. So we are taking these opposite examples because it is not in what that particular specific thing is that really determines whether what you're seeking. Behind all of this is the urge to be purnaha. Because I feel apurnaha, I want to feel more complete. I want to feel happy. I want to feel secure. This is the common thing behind all of these opposite examples. So one pursues this X and Y, whatever the goal is. Now, when this X or Y is accomplished, no doubt there is a sense of fulfillment. There is some sense of accomplishment, some sense of completeness, and for some time I forget my apurnatva. And I'm comfortable in those moments, I'm comfortable in myself. But the moment of fulfillment is fleeting. Because I have this conclusion in the back of my mind that I am apurnaha. And because it is reinforced by so many things, that conclusion comes back. And this sense of fulfillment, even though it is temporary, is all the fulfillment that I have seen in life. So naturally, I want more of it. And therefore, I feel that whatever I have done, I need to do more of the same. And then I start to pursue more of the same. Because this is the only way to get fulfillment that I know. I don't know of any other way. Now, what are the issues with this approach? So this is where we get into a certain vivekaha. Vivekaha means discriminative thinking. This kind of discriminative thinking is required for one to understand what this problem of samsara is and for moksha to become relevant. So we will get into this vivekaha, some discriminative thinking, some kind of inquiry that a person has to do, the adhikari has to do to satisfy the first criteria of how the adhikari becomes the moksha. So we should see that there are some fundamental contradictions in this approach. The objects of the world that I hope to gain security from, they are themselves inherently insecure. Let us take the example of money. I feel that I will have security if I have money. Now, let us start with somebody earning money and keeping money in the house in the form of these notes. Now, are those inherently secure? Rats can eat those notes, or termites can bite and eat away those notes. So, keeping notes at home is not a good idea. Therefore, one keeps these notes in the bank. Now, are they secure in the bank? There is something else that can eat the money in the bank. That's called inflation. So, if one doesn't invest that money properly, then within maybe 8 or 10 years, inflation can eat your money, and the purchasing power of that money can become half of what it currently is. It is not secure in the bank also. So then one thinks about, oh, there are these securities. Therefore, one invests in the market, for example. Ironically, they are called securities. But even these securities are not secure, because the market has its ups and downs. So rats, termites, inflation, and market ups and downs can affect whatever my security is depending on. So this thing itself is not inherently secure. We may take something else. For example, my food. I have to secure my food, and not just my current food, some future food. So I buy a refrigerator. I keep my food in the refrigerator. So I am depending on the refrigerator for my food security. But the refrigerator itself is not secure because the manufacturer washes his hands off after 1 year of warranty. And then it may develop some problems. So basically everything in this world that I think I'm going to get my security from itself is not secure. And therefore I need to try to secure those things now. And therefore, one gets into this chain of things, one involves oneself in this chain of things. The original problem I started off was my security, but then I have to now worry about the security of my security. So this results in some struggle, and then it makes one very busy, a busy person. And then one may become so busy in this process that one doesn't even have the time to enjoy the various acquisitions one has made. That is what happens when one becomes a workaholic at job, for example. The job takes up so much of my time and so much of my energy that I literally don't seem to have energy or time to devote to the things that I've already accomplished. Now let us look. So this is the first fundamental contradiction. That what I am trying to gain my security from itself is not secure. Now there is a second fundamental contradiction when it comes to kamaha, that what I am trying to gain my happiness from, it fundamentally doesn't have any happiness. So this is where some Vedantic reasoning comes in, and Vedanta teaches this very clearly, and we will look at this later. But what I'm giving is a summary of the Vedantic teaching. This is the big mistake in thinking that an object has got happiness. Vedanta is very clear, unequivocally clear. Or I'm not sure if I'm using the term properly. It's very clear that this objects of the world have got no inherent happiness. Because it's very logical to say that if an object had inherent happiness, it should always give happiness at all times and to everybody. For example, a fire inherently has heat. So wherever fire is, no matter who the person is, it gives heat. And similarly, no matter what time of day is, what time of the year it is, if you have a fire, it will give heat. You cannot imagine fire without heat. That's why heat is said to be the nature of fire. Similarly, if something has inherent happiness, if happiness is the nature of that object, then the object should give happiness at all times and to all people. So let us look at this question. Does an object give happiness to all people? If you take any given object, it gives happiness to A. Does it give happiness to B also? If you take the example of parikai, for example, bitter gourd. Now somebody makes parikai sambar. There's one person who relishes it, saying, I like this very much. But then there's another person who says, I don't like this at all. It doesn't give me happiness. Or there may be rice and sweets in a particular meal. One person is very hungry and he relishes that meal. But another person is diabetic and his sugar is at 300. He runs away from that meal. Vichara Sagara is one of the texts of Vedanta. It has got the whole Vedantic teaching comprehensively in it. So it gives an example of a female snake. It says the female snake makes the male snake very happy when the male snake sees the female snake. But then a human being runs away from it in fear. So it demolishes this idea that this object has got happiness. Now let us look at the other question. Does an object give happiness at all times? Let's just forget other people. To the same person, does it give happiness at all times? Say no. Let us take the example of somebody visiting, say, some hill station. When that person is there, when the person enters the hill station, the air is very beautiful, and there are all these important places to visit, and the person enjoys it. So for 3-4 days, there's all this looking up of where do I go, where do I see, and all this. There's a lot of clicking of photos, and one feels one for some time being feels that one is happy. Well, after the 4th day, 5th day, if you look at the travelogue, there are no more places to see. You have to visit the same places again. The novelty is gone. And when this happens, then the happiness factor goes down gradually. The ability of an object to give happiness, if at all it can give happiness, it wears out. The curve goes like this. So then this person has to now seek some other hill station or some other novel experience. So if the object doesn't have this inherent happiness, where did the happiness come from? Vedanta says it comes from you. You are the source of that happiness. But this can be very clearly seen only if the later Vedantic teachings are understood. For the time being, let us take what Vedanta says, that the source of this happiness is you. Because what else could it be? If it is not the object, where does this happiness come from? There are only two factors in any experience. It is me and the object. So if the coming together of these two if the idea that the object has got inherent happiness, if that idea is demolished, where else can the happiness come from? There is only this other factor, which is me. And Vedanta says it is really you. And what is the mechanism by which this happiness arises? There's when I come in contact with the object, for some time being, it creates a conducive state of mind. That's all. It creates a conducive state of mind where I forget my other desires and my pressures of this apurnatvam. I forget it for the time being. And in that state of mind, my own happiness reflects. So Vedanta gives an example of a dog chewing on a bone. The dog continuously keeps chewing on the bone. What does the bone have? It is so dry. There is nothing in it. What is it that it finds so tasty in the bone that it keeps chewing on it? What Vedanta says, or in fact, this example is given by Vedanta, but I suppose it can be confirmed. I have not confirmed it personally, but what Vedanta says is that when the dog chews on this bone, that bone lacerates or makes some small cuts in its mouth, and it starts to bleed. And what it is really sucking is its own blood. And it mistakenly attributes the taste of that blood to the bone. And this is exactly what Vedanta says we are also doing. We come in contact with the object, and there is a certain happiness that is produced in the process in my mind. And I attribute that happiness to the object. But this is a mistake. The object itself has got no inherent happiness, but then I am pursuing this kama purushartha, saying the objects are going to make me happy. Is the second fundamental contradiction. And sooner or later, as we said, the novelty wears out. The ability of this object to give me happiness, it wears out. Whether it happens, I keep seeking newer and newer things. I am getting entrapped in the process because my vision is flawed. Now there is this third fundamental contradiction that I seek happiness and security from relationships. That the other person will make me feel complete, will make me feel happy, will make me feel secure. But the other person is also apurna. That person says, I am incomplete. I don't have this happiness. I don't have this security. And so what is this other person doing? This other person is in turn seeking that happiness and security from me. So there are these two apurna individuals who come together. And it actually complicates the matter even more. As a single individual, I had to worry only about my apurnatvam, my lack of happiness, my lack of insecurity. Now, in conjunction with this other individual, I not only have to worry about my happiness and insecurities, but this other person's happiness issues and insecurity issues also. So this incomplete plus incomplete doesn't make one more complete. In fact, if at all, it makes one less complete potential. So there are these three fundamental contradictions in my approach. One is the object doesn't have inherent security, the object doesn't have inherent happiness, and this relationship that I am in, and this need not just be a familial relationship. It could be anything else. It could be a business relationship also. I'm trying to draw some happiness and security out of the other person, but the other person wouldn't be there if that other person wasn't doing the same thing. So there are these fundamental contradictions. And therefore, this approach doesn't work. And now, let us look at some more issues here. Every gain, everything that I call a gain in this world, there is no free gain. Every gain involves some kind of a loss. For example, I look at this nice house, and I feel that this house is going to make me more complete. Therefore, I buy the house. Now there has been this gain of this house. But the gain is not a pure gain. That gain is offset by a loss. What is the loss? One has to make a huge down payment. And then one has got the mortgage now that one has to steadily keep working on in terms of repaying the loan. So this mortgage is now going to make one run around in order to be timely with the loan payments, etc. So there's always something that gets offset in terms of either loss of money or loss of one's time or loss in terms of some added responsibility. One may get an increment and a promotion at work, for example. That's great. It is a material accomplishment. But then it also comes at the cost of some added responsibility. So one has to perhaps devote more time towards that. So nothing is a gain, a pure gain. Every gain is accomplished with some loss. That is the nature of all these worldly gains. We will see later that it is moksha that doesn't have any of these defects. Now, the next issue is that the world is fundamentally uncontrollable, unpredictable, and unsustainable. It is impossible for me to come to a situation where I have aligned everything around me in such a perfect manner that it becomes a constant source of happiness. It's impossible to do this because something or the other will fall apart. I have certain likes and dislikes, and I can try to arrange the world around me in accordance with my likes, and I can try to get rid of the things or shield myself from the things I don't like. I can create some kind of a shell around me. But then the world is unpredictable, uncontrollable, and unsustainable. And something or the other will fall apart. And when that happens, it leads to reactions in my mind. It leads to anger, frustration, depression, helplessness. Amiji calls it HAFD, helplessness, anger, frustration, depression. These are all we will see, these are all the symptoms of samsara. We have to diagnose the problem as being samsara, but all these symptoms, if I am feeling helpless, if I am feeling angry, frustrated, depressed, then that's a symptom. I should see that as a symptom, and the symptom has to be analyzed. Why that is happening? We are talking about all this viveka that helps me analyze and figure out what is the root of all this. And there may be somebody else who says, no, life is great. I'm enjoying life. Somebody who perhaps is a very resourceful person who has a lot of wealth and may have, arranged, so-called arranged life in such a way that everything around him is perfect. Maybe that person, somebody could do that. That question may arise, and we see all these rich people who always appear to be very happy when you see their news snippets or YouTube videos or whatever. And then we says no. Because all it takes is one stomachache. Puja Swamiji says this. One stomachache is all that is required to remove this smile that this person had. And a diagnosis of that one stomachache may point to something that is a difficult disease. So we say that life is like this one-sided boxing match where you are against an opponent whom you cannot see. A boxing match where you can see the opponent is difficult enough because the opponent can land some blows defeating my defenses. But then if I cannot see the opponent, then I don't know where to defend, right? I turn this way and then the opponent may give me a blow from the back. And I try to turn the other way, the opponent has shifted his or her location and given me a blow from somewhere else. Life is like this one-sided boxing match. Now, who is this opponent? We say it is my own prarabdha karma. As we discussed, that every human being is born a human being because there is a mixture of punyam and papam. And when the papam is about to bear fruit, then it results in situations that are not conducive. Those are the blows that come from my own prarabdha karma. And this karma is not seen. If it was something that could be seen, I could do something about it. It's an unseen factor. The lands blows from the least expected of places. So I don't know where the next blow in life is going to come from. Nobody can tell. Today everything might be going great, but tomorrow it might be an entirely different story. That's why Bhajagovindam says, Ma kuru dhana jana yavana garvam harati nimeshat kalah sarvam. Harati nimeshat kalah sarvam. Within minutes, the life can turn upside down. Therefore, don't be too proud of Yavana Dhanajana. Don't be too proud of your body or its great condition. Youth, don't be too proud of it. Don't be too proud of the wealth or the people around you. Because within seconds, within minutes, life can turn things upside down. So because of all these issues that we saw, that there are these fundamental contradictions, these objects have got no inherent security, they have no inherent happiness, the relationships I am in is the struggle because the other person themselves, the other person involved is apurnaha. And then we saw that every gain involves some kind of a loss, and the world is unpredictable, unsustainable, uncontrollable. Things will happen that I don't like. And one can never predict what tomorrow is going to be like. So because of all these things, one gets into this struggle to try to derive happiness and security from the world. And as one keeps struggling and struggling, one also gets older. And Bhajagovindam is an important text in this regard because it points out all of these issues. Listening, Shravanam of the Bhajagovindam is said to produce this diagnosis of the problem of samsara. So Bhajagovindam says, Dinayaminyau sayam pratah shishira vasantau punharayatah kalah gacchati gacchatyayuhu tadabina munchati asha vayuhu. Bhajagovindam says, Dinayaminyau sayam pratah shishira vasantau punarayatah. So Dinayaminyau, day and night. Sayam pratah, dusk and dawn. Shishira vasantau punarayatah. So day and night come and go. Dusk and dawn come and go. Shishira vasantau, winter and spring come and go. Kalah kridati, kalaha, time doesn't stop for anybody. In the meantime, gacchatyayuhu, one's age, one's ayuhu is being depleted. One is getting older. Tadapina munchati asha vayuhu. Even then, this desire factor doesn't go away. Why? Because I feel apurnaha. This apurnatvam is there. And as long as this apurnatvam is there, I am compelled to pursue something or the other. And old age only worsens the sense of insecurity and this lack of happiness. The Bhajagovindam continues. Yavad vitto parjana saktaha tavan nija parivaro raktaha paschat jivati jarjara dehe vartam prichhati na vartam kopi na prichhati ge. Yavad vitto parjana saktaha. As long as vittoparjana, as long as one is capable of earning, yavat vittoparjana saktaha, tavat nija parivaro raktaha. So long as a person is capable of earning, until then, this person is, everybody is attached to this person. Everybody in the family treats this person with a certain respect and is attached to that person with some love and affection, etc. Paschat jivati jarjara dehe. So later on, when one is in this old body that is perhaps not even able to walk around properly, that may even be confined to the bed, and one is surviving in this body, paschat jivati jarjara dehe vartam kopi na prichhati gehe. He says that even the attitude of the family members changes. There's nobody who even asks. Even there may be, days that pass by before somebody comes and talks some pleasantries. So in this manner, the entire life goes. Bhaja Govindam says, Balas tavat krida saktaha, tarunas tavat taruni saktaha, vruddhas tavat chinta saktaha, parame brahmani kopi na saktaha. So in childhood, one is engaged with all these playthings. Balas tavat krida saktaha, tarunas tavat taruni saktaha. In youth, one is engaged in a company of the opposite sex. Tarunas tavat taruni saktaha. One is entertained, one feels happy, one gets some pleasure out of that. And then vruddhas tavat chinta saktaha. Once one becomes old, chinta saktaha, there is worry. Swamiji calls this the federal problem. Federal, federal problem. What is this federal problem? Fe stands for fear. De for depression. Re for regret. And L for loneliness. So there is this fear as one gets older about what is going to happen to my body. Am I going to get certain diseases? I hear about this around me. And it's not just am I question. Jara, Janma Mrityu, Jara Vyadhihi. Jara is a part of life. It will certainly be there in old age. Old age without Jara is unheard of or very, very rare. So there is this fear of disease, etc., fear of getting bedridden. And then there is depression because earlier one was so active and now one is perhaps confined in a room. One is not even able to carry out the basic activities. And then there is regret about things that one carries, about things that one may have done, or about things that one may not have done. And then there is loneliness because the various companions one had in life, they are also getting old, and one by one they may be departing. And as one progresses in old age, if one lives to a point, ripe old age, it may be that most of one's companions, close friends or even close family members may have departed. So one has to confront this federal problem. Becomes very palpable. Vruddhastavat chinta saktaha. Parame brahmani kopi na saktaha. Bhagavad Pada laments that the whole life goes like this and nobody has time to think about Parabrahman. Parame Brahmani kopi na saktaha. There is no time to think about higher pursuits in life. What is the meaning of life? Is there more to life? Is there any way I can put an end to all these problems? Nobody has time to think about this. One is so caught up in the problems. And when death comes, one is still unfulfilled. Purna. One was Apurnaha when one was living, and one is Apurnaha when one dies. Therefore, Bhaja said, Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Janani Jathare Shayanam. There is repeated birth again. There is a rebirth. And the same story continues. Punarapi maranam, he dies again. Punarapi janani jathare shayanam, again enters the womb of some mother. Iha samsare bahu dustare kripaya pare pahi murare. Samsara is very difficult to cross. So this struggle doesn't end with this current life, says Vedanta. So this is samsara, the never-ending struggle. So all the artha and kamaha accomplishments, they can only give me fleeting moments of fulfillment. And following this, I still see myself as apurnaha, and I have to pursue my next goal and my next goal. I'm always busy. So it is like a race. Imagine I'm in a race where that finish line is constantly moving away from me, But I have to somehow reach the finish line. So I'm running and running continuously. Or it's like running on a treadmill where I've been running for years, not just years, lifetimes, but I'm in the same place where I started. I am apurnaha. I want this purnatvam, but this strategy is just keeping me in the same place. So this is the problem of samsara. And one has to really diagnose this problem if I have to make progress in terms of solving this. I have to be able to understand this problem deeply. I have to see this problem. I have to see that I am imprisoned in this problem. I am basically a prisoner. Only then will the desire for freedom arise. So there are different people, different types of people, as we have discussed. There are these pure materialists whose entire life is confined to the pursuit of artha and kama. So the materialist pursues artha and kama goal, but this person is not concerned about ethics or dharma, etc. So he may even violate dharma in the process. And for this materialist, the world is the means and the world is the end. Basically, he doesn't know of any other way to get to Purnatvam. He thinks that this world is the means to get to this fulfillment, security, happiness that I am seeking. And this world itself is the end. Basically, he tries to use the various worldly means to achieve worldly ends. We saw the example of Charvakas. There is no Veda, there is no Ishvara, there are no higher pursuits, no Dharma, no Moksha. And due to lack of dharmic pursuits, he doesn't basically accrue any punya. So this person may, on the other hand, incur major papam because this person is so pushed by these pursuits that may commit adharma. And as we saw, that if the person doesn't accrue punyam and may accrue papam, then one may take long detours into lower life forms. So this person remains apurna and goes into lower life forms, and suddenly due to some past punyam may get a human life. But again, if that person thinks along the similar lines, if the person is driven by pure materialism, then again the person's life is wasted in a manner. He was apurnaha to begin with, apurnaha to end with, made no progress. So this person continues in samsara. Then the next person in the list is a religious materialist. The materialist doesn't come to the Veda, but a religious materialist comes to the Veda. Because the Veda doesn't want to leave anybody behind. So the Veda is interested in the spiritual progress of everybody. That is the aim of the Veda. It wants to bring one to dharma and eventually to moksha. So it is interested in the spiritual progress of a person. So the Veda invites this materialist, saying that I can help you pursue your material goals. You come to me. I can help you with artha and kamaha, but my condition is you should follow dharma. So the Veda brings the materialist on board. The materialist also says, fine, if the Veda seems to talk some sense, so perhaps I can try out what the Veda is saying. And so the materialist says, I am willing to pursue dharma because you are telling me. But my main goal is artha and kamaha only. So this person uses religion for material growth. Being a materialist, he pursues artha and kamaha with the help of dharma. His end is still artha and kamaha. He is not interested in spiritual growth. So for him, dharma is the means, the world is the end. Ishvara is the means, world is the end. All of this puja, yajna, danam, tapaha, etc., they are the means, but he's eyeing the world. He's still eyeing artha and kamaha. And Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gītā describes the different types of bhaktas, the different types of devotees. And he says there are 4 types of devotees: the Artha Bhaktaha, the Artharthi Bhaktaha, the Jigyasu Bhaktaha, and the Jnani Bhakta. These are the 4 types of devotees that Krishna talks about. So the Artha Bhaktaha is somebody who thinks of Bhagavan, whose devotion comes out only when he is in trouble. Artha Bhaktaha. At other times, he's just busy pursuing materials, and artha and kamaha. He doesn't bother thinking about Bhagavan. He doesn't bother going to temples or any devotional activity. He doesn't do. The moment somebody in the family falls sick, or he himself falls sick, suddenly he thinks of Bhagavan, and he makes all these temple visits. So such a person is an artha bhakta. The second kind of bhakta is an artharthi bhakta. Somebody who thinks of Bhagavan not only when one is in trouble, but also for success in one's material pursuits. Because one is starting a new business, one does a puja there. He's not in trouble, but he wants this business to be successful. So he makes Ishvara, so to say, like a business partner. Such a person is an artharthi bhakta. The Jigyasu bhakta and the Jnani bhakta we will talk about later. So this religious materialist is either an artha bhakta or an artharthi bhakta. And being religious, this person tries not to violate dharma. So, as we see, the Veda invites this materialist to be a part of the journey and tries to grow this materialist in a spiritual direction. We are already at the end of the hour, and we will see. I will conclude here, but we'll pick up this thread in the next class, and we will see what this development of the religious materialist is, what this religious materialist can achieve and what this religious materialist cannot achieve. And then we will come to this person. So this religious materialist is using the religion for material growth. Then next we will see the person who doesn't use religion, the Veda, for material growth, but uses the Veda for spiritual growth. So with this, I will conclude here, and then we'll pick up the thread in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidham Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. So if anybody has any comments or questions, we can take them now.
Sir, can I ask again? Can I ask?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Today's context of this topic, one question is coming to my mind. Being in samsara, is it possible for the mumukshu to attain moksha during this particular janma?
Yes. Basically, first is the diagnosis of the problem. The first is even this the arising of the idea that one is in samsara. One is this in this endless struggle. Many people don't realize it. That is the first step. That is why all this viveka is required. And as we will see, that once one has recognized the problem one is in, right, then one needs the correct diagnosis of the problem. So the recognition of the problem can make one a mumukshu. Once one recognizes the problem, then one starts to question that is there something else that leads me to this purnatvam? So that asking of the question is very important. Is there something else? That means that one is developing a certain distance from this pursuit of artha and kamaha and dharmaha alone as the means to get to this purnatvam. So one develops a certain dispassion, this is the word that is used, right, towards these pursuits. And then one begins to question, is there something else? Right? So that question is very important. And that is when the Veda helps us further. And that is when Vedanta comes into the picture and says, yes, there is something else that you can pursue. So one needs first an inclination, a spiritual inclination to ask this question. The next thing is one needs a certain competence to do this pursuit also. So just the inclination is not enough. One needs a certain competence also. And therefore, the one competence in terms of all these qualifications, one needs to be a mumukshu, one also needs to be a jigyasuhu, like we said. One needs a certain clarity that it is this study of Vedanta alone that can lead me to this purnatvam. So that we will see later. So the first step is that one recognizes the problem. The next step is one diagnoses the problem properly and becomes a jigyasuhu. And then one needs certain preparedness of this mind. If all these factors are there, then moksha is definitely an achievable target that Vedanta says it is achievable.
A subset of the same question. Sorry, if somebody is having any question, please ask. Otherwise, I'll ask the subset. By looking at what has been described so far, is it possible for one not to enter samsara so that you will not face these kind of consequences, and then your mind started towards what Veda prescribes, that one need to attain moksha, that is the end. So
there is nothing like not entering samsara. By default, everybody is in samsara. Every person is in samsara. Even an animal is in samsara only. Because like we said, every jiva, right? Every jiva is in samsara by default. The jiva is a jiva because the jiva is in samsara. And the only way to come out of this samsara problem is to recognize the problem is there and to gain atma jnanam and become free. That is the only way one can come out of it.
Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for my question. Thank you for answering my question. Thank you.
Hari Om, Lakshi.
Hari Om.
Yeah. So I was just a good question. Can you maybe confirm this? But I read somewhere that samsara's basic definition is the attachment to this body. So it is your identification with the body is samsara. It is not that you have to be in a household as a grihastha and things like that. It starts right with this, the very first attachment you make. And so as he pointed out, basically we're all in samsara by default because we start with this attachment right from get-go. So is that
Yes. Yeah. Basically, this apurnatvam, right? This feeling of incompleteness, that is what is driving all of this, right? So basically, this feeling of apurnatvam makes me pursue various things endlessly. So this pursuit of the various things endlessly is this never-ending samsara. It is this shoreless ocean, so to say, that is very difficult to cross. But if you look at the first cause of it, it is this apurnatvam, right? Apurnatvam involves this identification with the body because, I feel that I am this much. I'm so a small speck in this vast universe, right? But if we were to analyze the cause of it further as to what causes this apurnatvam, then it eventually comes to self-ignorance, as we will see. So there is this entire chain of things, and this is the subject of some of our classes that we will look at in the future. But yeah, that identification with the body, mind, and saying that I am this limited individual, I am incomplete, that is the starting point of samsara.
Very
Rama?
interesting, sir. Very interesting. Yeah.
Oh,
Rama,
sorry,
yeah.
No, I was going to answer the other person's question. So the entire premise of Bhagavad Gītā, Arjuna is in samsara and he is trying to figure out what to do, and Bhagavan is giving him advice on how to get out of, how to be in samsara, how to fight the war and still do it correctly, right? So I want to say that there is hope. We've been given some guidelines on how to do that. And on the other hand, you take Ramana Maharishi, a very young age, he got out of it. And that is also because he did all the work in his previous births. And probably he was in samsara in his previous births, and slowly he worked it out. And that when he was 16 years old in this birth, he was able to get out of it. So I just want to say that there is hope, there is enough direction and guidelines in Vedanta to help us get out of this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure many of you have read the story of Nisargadatta Maharaj. Very inspiring story. He's in samsara. He decided to be in samsara and still pursue the truth. Go check him out. He was actually making. He was in the business of making BD and the cigarette BD. And then one fine day he was like, oh, I'm very frustrated with this. And then he finds the guru. That's the most important step. I think Ratsiya said that too. Very important step is to find the correct guru. And the guru says, oh, this is the truth. Go meditate on this. And he goes to Himalayas and he's like, this is all experience in the same consciousness. He comes back to Bombay, lives with his family, does the same BD cigarette business, and realizes. And there are so many videos about his talks on YouTube. It's very amazing. Sorry, I didn't want to go on about this, but yeah.
Good points, Rama. So to conclude what Rama Bhagini is saying, that it is possible, but it will take some time to offset the punya pabam what we have done, the prarabdha karma and sanchita karma. Once it is nullified, probably that particular janma when you take, probably that may take to moksha. That's what my understanding, sir. Is it correct?
Well, actually, yes, it takes a certain time and a certain pursuit. The interesting thing is that this karma, right? It doesn't get nullified in the sense that before Jnanam, right? So after Jnanam, yes, we can say it gets nullified, but then the prarabdha karma is still there after Jnanam. And before Jnanam, it doesn't get nullified. So nullification of karma is not the cause for Jnanam, or the cause for moksha, as we will discuss, is purely Atma Jnana. It's purely knowledge. And knowledge alone results in this nullification of karma. It's not the other way around. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And that's exactly why both Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Ramana Maharishi, although they got the jnanam, they suffered with cancer or something else, because that was their karma. They had to get rid of it.
Correct. Thank you, sir. Wonderful today. We'll try to see the next class with more learnings.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari
Hari
Om.
Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, Gopal. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om, Guruji.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.